For my research and planning, I used Google to look up trailers which were of a psychological thriller genre. I ended up finding When a Stranger Calls, Shutter Island and Gone Girl. By clicking View Images on Google, I then viewed pictures of their posters and magazines the films had been featured on. I then went on to YouTube, which is a website you can stream videos on. I looked up trailers for the films I would be analysing and embedded them into my WordPress blog. This is a blog my college uses to present students' work in an organised list of posts. I then used a DSLR camera, a tripod, dolly, and a flashlight to take location pictures for my planning work. This helped me as it reminded me where I needed to film. Moving on, I went on to constructing my poster and magazine. I first used my school editing suite to access the Beecham shared folder for A2 Media. I then searched up for a blank canvas for magazines. Magazines like Empire and Sound came up, which intrigued me to find out which magazine I should use. I researched on Google and found that Empire magazine promotes horror, thriller and adventure movies, so I chose this one. With the magazine layout sorted, I then started to work on my poster. First, I looked back on my research posters and took ideas from them. This way, I could form with conventions. Using a DSLR camera, flashlight and a tripod, I took images of my main characters in different poses. I then took the SD card out of the camera and plugged it into my Mac laptop. I then wanted to know what my audience thought of my ancillary texts. I decided to film a focus group by using Photo Booth on a MacBook Air. After I had filmed it, I opened it up on Final Cut Pro and used the drag tool to move the clips to where I wanted them. By using the razor blade tool, I cut out any unnecessary clips I did not need. I then exported the document to my desktop and uploaded it to YouTube, where I could then embed the video onto my WordPress blog for me to comment on. I then imported the images onto a files document. I then also put them onto my iCloud. By putting them onto my iCloud, I could access the files from any device around the college or at home. This made it easier to do my work in different locations. I also made a storyboard which helped me to map out how my trailer was going to be constructed. I used a scanner to process them onto my Mac and post them onto WordPress. I also used Prezi to present my research into different genres. Prezi is a presentation website which can be embedded onto my WordPress blog. I then came up with different ideas of how my poster could look and couldn't decide. So I decided to do some audience research. Finding SurveyMonkey off of the internet helped me to create a survey whereby I asked my audience about what they thought would look the best. I posted the survey to my media blog and quickly received responses. Once I had decided on images I wanted to use, I put the images onto Photoshop for editing. I used the Magic Wand tool to get rid of the excess background features that I did not want. I then dragged and dropped the new cropped images onto another Photoshop tab and started to use the magazine canvas and my poster layout to construct my ancillary texts. Using the magnetic lasso tool helped me for a more sharp cutout of my models. On my magazine, I wanted to add small details onto the female, such as a black eye. I did this by opening a new layer on Photoshop and using the clone stamp tool by clicking Alt and selecting the colour purple. And then I reduced the hardness of the brush. I then clicked around her eye. On my poster, I wanted to embed the image of a prison onto the background to show a location. I did this by using the eraser tool and then increasing the opacity or fill on the prison to make it more visible to the audience. I then added effects to both my magazine and poster such as saturation, brightness, or hue saturation. This was to emphasize the image features I wanted. For my building blocks on my poster, I downloaded a font called Steel Tongues off Fonts to You, which is used on established film posters. I used the text box to construct my building blocks and the Move tool to place them where I wanted them. By selecting and highlighting the text, I could also change the colours. For my main titles and cover lines on my magazine, I used different fonts available to me on Photoshop. Moving on to the production of my final trailer, the main equipment I needed was a flashlight, a video camera, a tripod, and in some cases a dolly. Once I had done my filming, I imported my videos from the SD card and logged and transferred them onto Final Cut Pro. I then selected the clips I wanted and dragged them onto my production line. I first had to render the files so that they would play with the Final Cut Pro software. I then used the razor blade tool to cut down the clips, and by double clicking them I could speed up the playtime to show slow moving scenes quickly. I had moved the clips into the right order and started to alter the sound levels by double clicking and selecting Control and click. This is so sound could be exaggerated. Finding royalty-free sound on the internet helped me to create an atmosphere on my trailer. I downloaded the sound from different websites and put them onto my iTunes list, where I could then open it up onto Final Cut Pro. I used a dictaphone to record my narratives and sound that was not clear on the actual clips. The breathing I used in some of the scenes is classed as Foley. Turning the voice notes into MP3 files helped me to put them onto Final Cut. I then added sound effects by using Add Effects at the top of the page. I used the Echo tool to create an atmosphere and used the Dissolve tool to mix the sounds together. For my montage sequence, I added a blink effect to increase the suspense. I also increased the level of sound volume towards the end of the montage to increase the tension. I then exported the finished file to YouTube, where I could then use the embed link into my blog. I used a survey site called PollDaddy to ask my audience questions on my media products. Clicking view results allowed me to see my audience feedback. For my evaluations, I used Prezi to show my analysis into my own work. I also used YouTube videos I constructed on Final Cut Pro. I use websites like Twitter and Facebook to gain audience feedback along with VideoScrub to present the results. Using social networks was helpful, as I could use the power of a hashtag to make my film title more known.